I got good news and I got bad news. The good news is that the White House just announced a plan to encourage Americans to have more babies after our birth rate has been below replacement for over 50 years. The bad news is that part of the plan involves promoting IVF, which listeners to the show will know I and many other people consider intrinsically immoral for a whole host of reasons, including the fact that it causes the destruction and indefinite freezing of countless human beings, it commoditizes human life, and it establishes the domination of technology over the origin and destiny of human life. Also, it involves guys committing a gravely disordered act in a gross medical room. This is a family show. I'm not going to paint too much of a picture here. We'll just leave it at that. All of that said, the policy should not come as a surprise. IVF is extremely popular with the public. 70%, I think, of American adults think IVF is a good thing. Only 8% know that it's a bad thing. Also, it's not surprising, given that it's a relatively new technology that most people just have not had the opportunity to think through. Also, the policy clearly comes from a place of good intentions. Most people think it's pro-life, including President Trump, who campaigned and won on it. Now, also, there is a silver lining that I've not seen many of the understandably disappointed pro-lifers point out. Many of us, after the campaign, after this talk of IVF, which is a 70 or 80% issue, many of us were bracing for an IVF insurance mandate that would have forced companies to pay for IVF. Happily, that part has been shelved. This policy, more or less, just seeks to lower the cost of IVF, which, though bad, is basically the least bad way to fulfill the campaign promise. Most Americans, and even most Republicans, still have not grasped the moral horror of IVF. They will start to do that soon enough as designer babies saturate the market. You're already seeing that happen. In the meantime, though, I want everyone to consider a practical argument. Put the morality aside for a second. The practical argument for IVF is that it's going to increase the birth rate. But there is very little reason to believe that promoting IVF will actually increase the birth rate. And there's a lot of reason to believe that promoting IVF will lower the birth rate, because IVF is not particularly effective. The likelihood of a live birth after a cycle of IVF for women under 30 is just about 42%. For women between 40 and 41, it's 11%. Women 42 to 43, it's 5%. Women 44 and over, about 2%. In the meantime, it can cost tens of thousands of dollars per cycle, and the very existence of IVF as an option gives women a false sense of security that they can postpone having children, when in reality, every year they put it off, the likelihood that they will have children drops lower and lower, whether through IVF or the old-fashioned way. Even the liberal media have covered this. The women who say, I'm going to freeze my eggs, and then, in 10 years, I'll have a child. And then, they get the big splashy liberal magazine cover, and they say, oh, actually, it didn't work. And now they don't have kids. I have said for years at this point that the Trump administration gets it right 99.7% of the time. Who could ask for more than that? This man is a mere mortal. And the heart is in the right place on this one, as the heart is in the right place for the 70% of Americans who support IVF right now. Some parts of the pronatal policy are great. We need more babies, and we need more babies in ways that work, both practically and morally. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. I am very excited today to be joined by someone, I say this without one iota of exaggeration or flattery, one of my very favorite people in all of politics and media. We will get to that in 1 second. How's that for a tease? I'm a tease is what I am. First, though, I want to tell you about Balance of Nature. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles. I am so pleased to be a Balance of Nature preferred customer. Here's why. Here's why it's a game changer. Your supplements show up like clockwork every 28 days right to your doorstep. No remembering to reorder, no running out. It just happens automatically. Here's the kicker. You get the lowest price that Balance of Nature offers every single time. No hunting for deals, no promo codes, no stress. Plus, shipping is totally free every single month. Balance of Nature is absolutely terrific. And then when you're a little scattered, when you're on the road, or when you're just overworked, you don't need to worry about getting all those fruits and vegetables and all that, trying to get that sweet little Lisa cooking all the time, even when you're across the world. You just pop your Balance of Nature, you're feeling good. What also can really sell you is your personal health coach. Someone who checks in, cheers you on, helps you stay focused and on track with your goals. They look at the whole picture, body, mind, and spirit. Easiest routines are the ones that you don't have to think about when it's automatic. It is consistent. Right now, become a Balance of Nature preferred customer. Lock in wholesale pricing with free shipping every month. Balanceofnature.com. Use promo code Knowles, Canada BLAS for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com. Promo code Knowles. Who is this person that I'm talking about? Who is what? Drum roll, please. She's just coming off of a magnificent performance, an actual masterclass on Jubilees Surrounded. That would be my friend, Allie Beth Stuckey. Allie, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing very well. So I decided, we're mixing it up today, okay? Generally, I just sort of pontificate, I blab into a camera, and I said, Friday, casual Friday, I want to maybe, bring some friends on or something. And you just completely obliterated. It was an actual masterclass on Jubilee. We'll get to that clip in a moment. First, as one of the few people with very, very precise moral clarity on all sorts of social issues, what do you make of the IVF announcement?
Yeah, I loved what you said because it was very balanced. On the one hand, this is a very popular policy. It doesn't surprise me at all that Trump is in favor of it. A lot of people around him are probably in favor of it. But I'm sure he's also got people in his administration like you and me who hopefully have the strength to say, look, there are some ethical issues with this. And I am disappointed in some of the Republicans standing behind President Trump on this, on the congressional side, that I know probably do know better and have heard the ethical and moral arguments when it comes to the sanctity of life. It's a very inconsistent philosophy. If you say that a person is a person, no matter how small, that all people, no matter their stage of development, deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, we shouldn't murder them, but that also means that we shouldn't discard them, that we shouldn't freeze them indefinitely, that they shouldn't be eugenically picked out to decide, what gender and what characteristics that you want. It's inconsistent not to hold both of those positions, but it just takes a little bit more intellectual and moral effort to get there. And that's why you and I exist. We're trying to get people there.
Yes, totally right. The chief argument I hear against this from people who I think mean well, not the ones who are just kind of cynically going along, but the ones who I think sincerely mean well, is they say, well, look, we don't have enough babies and we want more babies, and more babies are always good. So how can you oppose IVF?
Right. And I heard what you said, that statistically, most of these IVF situations are not actually ending in a live birth. And what that means, it's not just a number. We're not just talking about pregnancies and births. When we say that, we are talking about children, living human beings who have died because adults with maybe good intentions have decided that the risk of a person's life is worth them possibly fulfilling their good desire to be parents. And that's starting out life disordered morally because it's adults who are supposed to make sacrifices for children, not the other way around. And so, I understand wanting more babies. I think there are different ways to incentivize that and to encourage that. But the IVF industry actually kills more unborn children every year than the abortion industry does. And so it's just not consistent.
There's also, look, the most provocative kind of answer to this question I found is they say, well, how can it be bad? If something results in a new baby, then that has to be a good thing. And the obvious rejoinder, though it offends a lot of people, is, okay, tell me about rape. Because rape can result in a new baby. And I know people who were conceived as through rape, and they have a right to life, and we love them, and they're just as human as anybody else.
Yeah.
That obviously doesn't justify rape. And they say, how dare you compare IVF to rape? And I say, well, I guess I am comparing them, but I'm only comparing them in as much as you are making the claim that all ways to produce a child are morally justified and should be legal and promoted. And I'm just pointing out that rape is a way to create a child. So obviously, at least in one case, you're saying there's a way to create a child, which is a good thing, but the way to create the child is not in any way justifiable.
Exactly. Just because we believe that every child conceived should be born without being murdered doesn't mean that we support every mode of conception. We also are against sex outside of marriage. We're against getting pregnant before you get married. But just as you said, no matter the circumstances surrounding someone's conception, they have a right to life. We're trying to stop the conception that is disordered and that leads to more brokenness and stripping these unborn children of their rights.
Yeah, that's right. And just creating a market for baby. We don't want markets for babies. Okay, I want to turn to a much more important topic, Allie. J-Lo. J-Lo just went on Howard Stern's show. Apparently Howard Stern still has a show. I actually thought his show got canceled, but it didn't. I guess he still has a show.
Me too.
And so J-Lo has been married 4 times. And she's been engaged reportedly 6 times. And she's, I'm not saying she's an old lady, but she's now a woman of a certain age. She's been around for a long time. And she's come to a conclusion about why her relationships haven't worked. It turns out it's always the other guy's fault. Do we have it?
No.
No. And you think you really have experienced loving someone?
Yes.
You have?
Yeah.
And when you can't get that love back?
What I learned, it's not that I'm not lovable. It's that they're not capable.
They can't love.
They don't have it in them. They need to appreciate the little person inside of them. They need to love them.
Yeah. You've been in a relationship with
and they gave me what they had.
Right, but
they gave me all of it. Every time.
But it's this much. It's
all the rings, all the things I could ever want.
Right.
They tried to give me the houses, the rings, the marriage, all of it. But
they didn't love you.
They didn't.
And didn't know you.
And I didn't love myself.
Is it possible that I'm mistaken? No, it's the children who must be wrong. Allie, your take.
Oh my goodness. There's some trite saying that I see going around on Instagram sometimes, and I can't even remember what it is, but it's something along the lines of, it's not that you're too much, it's that they're not enough to handle you, or something like that. And it sounds like that's what she's saying here, that it's not that I'm a narcissist. It's not that I am a diva. It's not that I have unrealistic expectations. It's that they cannot meet those expectations. And, if that continues to be her mentality, she will probably die a very lonely and sad woman, which is her prerogative. But this road to self-fulfillment that so many women are on, serving this God of self, always leaves in a dead end.
I was listening to a homily not that long ago, probably like a month ago. I was at the Live Action Summit, speaking of birth and bioethical issues. And it was a great homily from a priest. And he said, there's this vision of hell. And in hell, you've got this whole banquet table arrayed before you, delicious foods and good booze and desserts and everything. But the problem is, you're all sitting there, you and all the damned, and the fork is so big that when you reach down to get your pasta carbonara, you can't get it in your mouth. And that's the torture that you have for eternity. And the funny thing about it is that when you go up to heaven, it's the same banquet table. And it's actually the same forks. It's exactly the same. But the difference is the people in heaven spear the nice cannelloni, and then they feed them to the people across from them. So the forks work just fine. And the entire distinction, I thought it was a very cute homily, actually pretty profound.
So good.
The entire difference between heaven and hell is one of charity. It's one of, in hell, you're just completely obsessed with the self, and in heaven, you are caring for others and ultimately, looking toward God. And it just seems to me that if I were, I don't know how old Jennifer Lopez is, and Lady Never Tells, but if I had had 4 marriages and all these failed engagements, I might say, is there a common denominator here that is not Ben Affleck? I guess he was 2 of them, but anyway, there must be some other common denominator, right?
Yeah. She said at the end there, I don't think she liked it when Howard Stern said, they didn't love you. I think she was kind of appalled by that. Like, what? No, they definitely loved me. She said, no, I didn't love myself. That's what it always comes down to. And I've been saying for a long time, you've talked about this too, we do not have a deficit of self-love in this country. That is not our problem. We don't have a self-esteem issue. And women are told this all the time, that you're enough, you're perfect the way you are, you're so beautiful, it's always them, cut the toxic people out of your life. those people never end up happy. They end up divorced, they end up lonely, they end up destitute in a lot of ways, and they end up very confused because they've been told this lie that the self can be both the problem and the solution, that if you're depressed and anxious and lonely, you should go to the same place where your problems are to find the solution. And that, of course, doesn't work. You have to go outside of yourself, namely to the creator who made you, to find out who you are and why you matter. As soon as you step outside of yourself, this is kind of part of the paradox of Christianity, you actually find the satisfaction that you have been looking for. Maybe J-Lo will figure that out before she dies.
I hope so. It's good to store up your treasures in heaven, but when you need treasures on earth, I strongly recommend you go check out Birch Gold. Text Knowles to 989898. You can buy gold and get free silver. That's right. For every $5,000 purchased from Birch Gold Group this month in advance of Veterans Day, they will send you a free patriotic silver round that commemorates the Gadsden and American flags. I have mine on my desk in my office right now. I actually wish I had it on my set. It's phenomenal. I would put it in with my other gold and silver, but I like it. I like having it. I like looking at it. Gold just hit $4,000 an ounce, folks. It's up over 50% since the beginning of this year. You know that I'm a little bit of a gold bug. I got a fair bit of gold in my portfolio, so I'm feeling good about that. Okay, Birch Gold can help you own it by converting an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Plus, they will send you free silver honoring our veterans on qualifying purchases. If you are current or former military, Birch Gold has a special offer just for you. They're waiving custodial fees for the first year on investments of any amount. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, tens of thousands of happy customers, many of whom are listeners to this show and others, I encourage you to diversify your savings into gold. Text my name, Knowles, K-N-W-L-A-S, to the number 989898 for a free info kit and to claim your eligibility for free silver with qualifying purchase before the end of the month. Text Knowles, K-N-W-L-A-S, to 989898 today. Okay, back to politics, Allie, if you don't mind, because you've been following the Jay Jones debate, the attorney general candidate in Virginia who wants to murder all of us and our children, and like doubled down on it in texts and phone calls, said, yeah, I'm not joking. When Republicans have kids, they're breeding fascists. So they finally had a debate last night.
Yeah.
And he has not lost one Democrat endorsement. He might well be the next attorney general. Jason Miyares, who's the Republican candidate for AG, he took the opportunity to drive this home. Here's what he had to say.
Ballot. And I find it a little bit stunning that today you say one of the pillars of your public safety platform is protecting children. Were you protecting Jennifer's children when you said you wanted to see them die in their mother's arms? How can anybody who's ever worked in any of the crimes against children, all of the areas of federal and state local law department, how can they ever take you seriously, be the top prosecutor, knowing that you view that children should die to advance a political agenda? It's unconscionable, and if you were truly sorry, you would not be running for this office because you disqualified yourself.
Well said. I'm sure we all agree with it. The question is, will there be any actual political consequences for it, or are the Dems too far gone?
Well, I think it's yet to be seen. I mean, certainly, I think if people were going to be denouncing him, if Democrats were going to be trying to cut ties with him, they would have done that in the immediate aftermath. Now they're playing the strategy of just waiting it out because they understand the news cycle moves fast. They're going to look for something to distract their people or something that they can convince their people, hey, what they're doing over here is actually worse. We probably saw that with the, Politico article about the young Republicans and saying some of the things that they said. So I think that that's their play right now. I think that if they found this morally repugnant, they would have said so from the get-go, but they haven't. And so I think that at least shows where their heart and their mind is at this point. If they're pushed to do anything, like give any kind of consequence, it's certainly not because it's genuine. It's a cynical power play, but I'm not even sure that we're going to get there.
So there was a poll that came out before the leaked text messages, and it showed that Jay Jones was up. He was leading in the race. And not surprising, Virginia's pretty Democrat. After the messages, he had dropped about 10 points. So now, who knows? The only poll that matters is the poll on election day. I do wonder, even though the news cycle is going to move on, even though the Democrats are holding firm, trying to keep their heads down, there are scandals and there are scandals. There's like he gets caught, with his arm around a girl at a bar. That's one thing. Or he talks about how he wants Republicans' children to die in their mother's arms. That's a little bit different. Does this hit viscerally women. Does this hit, is this different in kind, as I guess I suspect it is, or no? I mean, you got the Democrats basically broadly excusing, minimizing, or even celebrating political violence, certainly since Charlie was murdered. Even before that, though. Is this not as visceral as I suspect it is?
Gosh, well, I think so. Of course, there are probably some progressive women who are, imbibing the propaganda. Well, Republicans want to take this way and do this, and they basically want your children dead because of what they believe about healthcare and immigration and all of that stuff. Maybe that works on some women, which is why I think that text needs to be amplified over and over again. To have this level of cruelty, to want to manifest a mom's worst nightmare, their child dying violently, period, but holding their child as they die. I mean, what a cruel and just dark and disturbed, wicked person you have to be. And to be in the position of administering justice, especially on behalf of children in the state of Virginia, this person needs to be nowhere near power, but especially a position like this. Hopefully, even progressive women in that state can say, you know what, I'm not going to be on board with Republicans, but this is just too far, especially in the wake of Charlie Kirk. When we see that rhetoric like this, that thoughts like this actually do translate to action pretty quickly for some people on the left, I don't think we should be playing around with this anymore. And hopefully people will be able to sober up to see at least that.
I love the vice president's response when there's the New York young Republican group chat gate, where it's these like 20-somethings sending spicy memes in a group chat. And JD was asked about this, and he says, oh, yeah, no, I have a lot to say. I mean, can you believe these kinds of text messages where someone would call for the murder of his political opponent's children and accuse him of... Oh, no, wait, that's not the New York young Republicans. Oh, no, that's the guy who wants to be Attorney General of Virginia. Right. That's totally how I feel about this. Oh, yeah, kids sent naughty jokes in a group chat. Kids you've never heard of, even 20-somethings you've never heard of, sent naughty jokes in a group chat and spicy memes. Oh, naughty, naughty, naughty. Let's get back to talking about Jay Jones, because I don't want to hear about these distractions. Totally, absolutely. Now, speaking of the Utes, so there's some good news coming out of religion in America, which was not the case for like 20 or 30 years, but it seems to be a lot of good news. Specifically, though, I'm not just talking about the declining Christianity stopping. I'm not just talking about people going back to church. That's all awesome. On the Catholic side of things, we've had liberal priests and prelates, kind of growing and growing for 50 years now. There is a chart going around social media and coming out of a really great study that shows that if you look at priests by age cohort, so priests ordained before 1975 and then 75 to 79, 80 to 89, moving forward, you're seeing, I think some of the numbers are actually screwed up a little bit on the chart, but they're moving up to, I think, 1990. You can see there's very liberal priests, somewhat liberal priests, moderate priests, conservative priests, very conservative priests. All of the energy consistently for decades is the priests are getting much more conservative, much more orthodox. We're not talking conservative like Republican or Democrat exactly. Much more orthodox, much more traditional, much more concerned with scriptural fidelity and, not trying to innovate. And the other thing is you got to remember that all of this is lagging by a lot because, bishops tend to be a little old, popes tend to be a little old. So if you're looking at this crystal ball, it just seems like for priests before 1980 and then 1980 to 1999, then 2000 or later, they say, what are the most important things to you? Climate change and ecology. All the boomer priests are all about climate change. The younger priests, not so much. Immigration and refugee assistance. Yeah, okay, but you see, it's the boomers who are really focused on that stuff. The LGBTQ, but then Eucharistic devotion, it flips. The boomers don't care, the young people do. Access to the traditional mass, it flips. And so, I don't know, to me, this is all really, really good stuff on the Catholic side. Are you seeing anything like that reflected on the Protestant side?
I don't know about statistics of people going into seminary. I would love to see that because a lot of the seminaries, unfortunately, have been captured. A lot of the Bible colleges have been captured over the past 20 to 30 years, at least with woke light professors and scholars and students going in there. And then, of course, a lot of that accelerated in 2020. But I am seeing, at least among my cohort, a backlash to that, a willingness to call out the institutions, to call out the seminaries, to call out the theologians that have basically been able to preach this stuff with impunity for years and say, no, 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 that's not true. Look at what scripture says. And I'm encouraged by that. I certainly see a lot of interest among young people, especially over the past month and a half or so, and just learning what the Bible says and reading the Bible and trying to understand it. Of course, a lot of people have been talking about the Charlie effect, that, okay, what is this faith that this man died for? If he was willing to sacrifice his life for it, it must be worth looking into. But honestly, as you know, a lot of that stuff had been building up before Charlie's assassination. There was a lot of interest. And when I talk to people, and you've had these kind of conversations too, what surprises me is that so many people nowadays who come to the faith, it's not necessarily because of they first encountered Christ or first encountered goodness. It's because they encountered real evil, either in their own lives or in the world.
Yeah.
They looked into the face of darkness. They realized there's something spiritual going on, and that's scary. I don't know what all of this is, but I know I don't want to go that direction. That certainly, I think, is an awakening that's happening. Of course, I'm very hopeful that it will have a positive effect on my evangelical cohort over here. And I'm certainly seeing the rumblings of that, even if I don't have the same statistics about seminaries that you have about the priesthood, which I see as a very good thing, by the way. And I would love to hear at some point your analysis of like why that is. Does it have anything to do with Vatican II? I'm so interested to know why it's gone this direction in the Catholic world.
Yeah, I think, the short version of it, though there's a much longer discussion, is councils take a while to implement for good and for bad. Councils kind of these things don't just like happen overnight. And there were all these insane reforms that followed the council to like totally upend the mass. And you had all these like 1970s libs just like screwing up everything. It was just awful. And so then you get this kind of hangover, and then reality starts to reassert itself. And you're seeing that all work out. And it's the great conservative consolation that like reality comes back, and the gods of the copybook headings come back.
Like a beach ball. Yeah.
I think that's it. I think we're seeing that now play out, especially the young Catholics are, to the right of Genghis Khan, and they're like, they want the truth. I am hearing this from my Protestant friends, not just you, but, Meg Basham had her big best-selling book on kind of the screwy pastors, and even in the mainline Protestants, like the Reconquista movement, American Reformer has been big behind that. So it's like something's obviously going on here. But to your point on the occult, even that, ironically, I think when people encounter evil, when they encounter real sin, that's undeniable, it's so tangible, it's so manifest. Not only does that point people to Christ as salvation, but I think it points them to a much more orthodox kind of religion. In my experience, woke pastors don't really speak that much about spiritual warfare. They don't really speak that much about spiritual acts of mercy, or the importance of the not so social justicey things. It's really easy to be an NGO and say we need to like feed poor people. It's good to feed poor people, but when the rubber meets the road and we talk about like devils and stuff, the kind of woo-woo, happy-clappy people, they don't really want to get into that. It's the hardcore, orthodox, faithful, traditional guys. They're the ones who are speaking about that reality.
Yeah. And I can't speak to why that, exists in the Catholic world, because I know social justice has long been like a big thing in the Catholic world, the social gospel and all of that. And we certainly do have that in evangelicalism. And one thing that I will tell you is that it's not only that they have a different view of God, a different view of man, a different view of sin, a different view of salvation, but also a different view of eschatology and what it means to advance the kingdom of God and what a new heaven and a new earth really look like. And we won't get into all of that, but they truly believe, these kind of so-called social justice Christians, that they are manifesting the kingdom of God here on earth, and that will be a political reality in which everyone will have equal outcomes. And so that is why when you start talking about spiritual warfare and things going on in the heavenly places, the principalities that Ephesians 6 talks about, they roll their eyes because they think that might be a metaphor. Maybe that's an allegory. Like, that's not something they're interested in. They are interested in maneuvering politically to gain enough power to, create their multicultural utopia here on earth that they think that they are responsible for. So yeah, it's deep and really messed up. And like we said, a lot of it starts, unfortunately, with the capture of the seminaries.
I am reminded of the quote by Richard Niebuhr, who says that modern religion is a God without wrath, leading a people without sin into a kingdom without judgment through the ministrations of a Christ without a cross. Pretty much sums it up. Now, I want to get to, speaking of religion, I want to get to the Muslims and the Jews in a second, because the Students for Justice in Palestine they're getting bloodthirstier than usual. And obviously that Gaza war seems to be wrapping up, maybe, sort of, kind of, I don't know. But first, I want to tell you about NeuroGum. Go to neurogum.com, promo code Knowles, Knowles. You ever feel like you're running on empty? You feel like you're just Jackson Browning your way through life? Well, when you're staring at that screen, hitting that afternoon crash, debating another coffee or energy drink that you know that you will regret, you can reach for NeuroGum and Mints. Neuro's energy and focus gum and mints gives you clean, focused energy without the crash, sugar, or sketchy ingredients. The easiest upgrade that you can make to your wellness and energy routine. Very nice, cool, neat, delicious, has ingredients that you can pronounce. That's really helpful. It's powered by natural green tea caffeine and L-theanine for calm focus, plus mood-boosting B vitamins. It's functional wellness that you can chew and go. Perfect for long work days, tough workouts, or those chaotic carpool days. Neuro fits your life. Discreet, effective, actually good for you. Also, Neuro has caffeine-free options for all-day wellness support. Neuro's memory and focus gum are made with American ginseng to support mental clarity, minus the jitters. Neuro's sleep and recharge mints offer melatonin and chamomile that will help you unwind and rest without pills or sugary gummies. For a limited time, you can get 20% off your first order at neurogum.com by using code Knowles, Knowles. That's neurogum.com, code Knowles, for 20% off your first order. You can also find Neuro at CVS and Amazon. Choose smarter, not harder. The Students for Justice in Palestine, which is one of the pro-Palestine groups on campus, probably the biggest one. The national organization just posted a poster that says, "Long live Salah al-Jab." I can't read behind him, and I don't know how to pronounce his name properly. But I don't know. He's some like jihadi. And then it says, "Death to the occupation, death to collaborators." Is it fair to say? I actually don't know who this guy is, so maybe it's not fair to say he's a jihadi. I don't know. He has the look, but maybe not. Forget about who that guy is. What about just the slogan? Death to the occupation. Okay, I get so death to Israel, but as Students for Justice in Palestine say that a lot. Death to collaborators. So that means death to the Gazans who are not totally on board with Hamas, I guess. Because Hamas right now, after the ceasefire and after the peace deal's kind of underway, Hamas is going door to door and pulling people out, Gazans, and killing them because they're accusing them of collaborating with Israel or the West or whatever. And I don't know. I have the least popular view on the Israel-Palestine conflict in that I broadly support Israel, but I criticize Israel pretty intensely sometimes. And I am sympathetic to the Palestinian people. My personal interest is really just in the Christian holy sites and the broader cause of justice. But I have no misconception that we're going to have a coalition with people we've been fighting for 1,400 years. So anyway, that satisfies no one and offends everybody. What is the proper Christian view on this kind of statement, on this conflict broadly? You know, I know there's some Christians who are slavishly pro-Israel, the nation state of Israel. There's some Christians who hate the nation state of Israel. I don't know. What are we supposed to think?
Yeah, so I'm not a dispensationalist. I think some people who aren't as familiar with the different, eschatologies out there assume that everyone who is Protestant, evangelical, everyone who grew up Southern Baptist is dispensationalist. I know a lot of people who are, and they've got their biblical arguments for that. And also,
Allie, can you explain to me? I'm not being cute. I don't really have a good definition of dispensationalism. Is that dispensationalism is the one that says the Jews don't need Christ, or some people say that's not an accurate description of? It's the one where you get beamed up at some point, or what is it? What does it actually mean? It goes back to John Nelson Darby and the Scofield Bible.
There's so many different parts of that. I did an episode on this to try to kind of explain it to people because it is confusing. But It's the belief in dispensations of grace, 7 dispensations of grace that were given by God throughout human history and that we see throughout the Bible. And there is the belief within that God kind of has a separate plan for Israel, that Israel is still God's chosen people, that when we read the Old Testament and when we read the prophecies, that we are still talking about Israel there. That is that belief, and that the church is a different covenant, that the church kind of has a different plan. Now, I will say, to be charitable, that those people still believe that the Jews have to be saved through Christ. They don't believe that there is no opportunity for them through Christ. But the reason why sometimes it kind of translates into a lack of evangelism to the Jewish people is because they do believe that there is going to be a separate time in the end times for the Jewish people to specifically hear and accept Christ. And so, yes, there is a rapture in the part of that. I mean, we all believe in the second coming of Christ, of course, but they believe that believers will be raptured up before the tribulation. Tribulation will happen. Jews will have their time to be able to, be specially evangelized to, and then the believers and Jesus will come back. That's not what I believe. That's not the historic view of eschatology. I mean, we could go on and on about that, but I, of course, believe that all of God's chosen people are God's chosen people through Christ. Whether you are a Jew, whether you are a Gentile, that is God's covenant through the blood of Jesus Christ. And so I don't even remember exactly what the question is.
Well, then it ties it back into, because
yes,
there's some people who are dispensational because their view of religion leads them to say, well, we have to support the nation state of Israel because the Bible tells us to, basically. And so there are plenty. Look, I don't mean to deride these people. There are plenty of people who have that view. On the other hand, there are some people who are Christian and say, actually, the Bible tells me I have to just despise the modern nation state of Israel, or I can't accept it under any terms, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. What are we supposed to think?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think the Christian has any obligation to support the modern state of Israel. I don't believe that they have any biblical responsibility to do that. However, probably like you, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I think it's a good idea in general. Like, if we have to pick, which I don't say that people have to pick. You could say, I'm not interested in what goes on in the Middle East. Okay, I think there's arguments for why America should be somewhat interested in that. But if I have to pick between Israel and pick between Hamas, yes, in general, I am going to support Israel in that conflict. If I have to pick a nation that is run by the Jewish people, that is generally democratic and generally respectful, it seems, of the idea of human rights, the more Western-leaning country in the Middle East, versus the barbarians that want to see me dead, then yeah, I'm going to choose Israel. I think that there's this really weird desire to ally with Islam, like in the Christian right, this belief that, actually, we have more theological commonalities with Islam. Actually, they have a better view of Jesus than the Jewish people do. I think that is so completely wrong and depraved. You actually don't have to pick. That's kind of like a false choice. You're just a Christian. But it's just not true. This weird idea that somehow Muslims and Christians are going to ally against the forces of evil. It's not true. It's not real. It's dumb. So
people seem to
as far
forget.
as politics go, I think it's better to support Israel. Go ahead.
Yes, going back, people forget that the conflict between Christendom and political Islam didn't start 20 years ago, or even a few hundred years ago, or even in the Crusades. It started in 732, really, and it started in Poitiers, which is 150 miles outside of Paris. Not outside of Mecca, not outside of Medina, outside of Paris, because Islam was on the move, and thankfully Charlemagne's grandpa booted them out. But they landed in Iberia, and they were in Iberia for 800 years. And I don't know, there's been a long-term conflict here, and also to this point.
Yes.
That Islam takes a more favorable view of Christ. I think it's worth remembering, the kind of distinguishing features of Judaism and Islam vis-a-vis Christianity are that Judaism rejects the resurrection, which is too bad, because there's a lot of evidence for the resurrection, and people should believe in it, because even as an ordinance of reason, but also they should believe in it. However, Islam rejects the crucifixion. They say they crucified him not. And I'm reminded, I'm not as good at quoting chapter and verse as my Protestant friends are, but I think it's in the letter to the Philippians 3:18, I could be wrong about that, where St. Paul writes, "There are many walking now, and I tell you, even weeping, who are enemies of the cross of Christ, because it occurs to me that Christ conquers death. He doesn't conquer death actually in the resurrection, though that's a sign that he's conquered death. He conquers death on the cross. And so, this kind of Gnostic or heretical view of Christ that you see in Islam, okay, I'm happy when people say nice things about my Lord, but they deny the central axis on which the whole world turns. That's not ideal.
No, not ideal. And their entire ideology is one that is based on pillaging and destruction. And everywhere they go, they infest the nation with more violence. That's just true. As an ideology, I'm not saying every individual Muslim is violent or in favor of that, but certainly as a religion, as a worldview, it is one of chaos and destruction. And that is, of course, why their nations are the way they are. And to your point, this idea that, just Christians and Muslims have been fighting for the past few years, even if we look at American history, at the beginning of American history, there was a fight against the Muslims. And I'm just very thankful that Christians then believed in a muscular Christianity that said, it actually is for love for my neighbor and love for women and children that I'm going to fight against this evil ideology. We have a very neutered Christianity today that believes that Christ's command to turn the other cheek means that we're not supposed to fight against true oppression, and that is completely wrong. And a lot of people have died because of that faulty belief.
Too many pacifists in the church militant, as a great priest friend of mine pointed out. Last night, we kicked off Decade 2 of the Daily Wire with the launch of our new show, Friendly Fire, and a lineup of major announcements, including the world premiere trailer for the Pendragon cycle, which you can watch right now at dailywire.com. Then we did something no one saw coming. We announced Daily Wire lifetime memberships. Only 10,000 will ever exist. That's it. 10,000 members who will have every all-access benefit for life. In less than 24 hours, more than half have already been claimed. This is your chance to stand with us for the next decade and beyond, to become part of the backbone that builds the future and proves the best is yet to come. Claim one of the remaining lifetime memberships and your 14-karat gold accented forward flag pin reserved only for lifetime members at dailywire.com/lifetime. I want to get to more murder and destruction, but first, my favorite comment yesterday is from Space Dreamer 9000, who says, apparently I'm disabled. Oh, because Ketanji Jackson said black people are disabled. Apparently I'm disabled. Does that mean I can park in the handicap zone now? I think you can. That's good. When do they get their stickers for their cars? Okay, Allie, real quick before I let you go. President Trump is, if you listen to the liberal media, he's sending in the 101st Airborne to, conquer American cities. It's kind of silly because they're American cities, so obviously the federal government has some interest in this. No one ever objected on the left when, Eisenhower and Kennedy were sending in the National Guard to desegregate schools. But now that President Trump is trying to stop the rampant murder in places like Chicago, that's apparently a bridge too far. Here is what President Trump had to say on crime in Chicago.
I used to watch these cities with the murders. Chicago recently had one deal where they had 11 murders in one weekend, and they said, well, yeah, but it was a holiday weekend. They actually told me that was the reason. Like it was okay because it was a holiday. It was Labor Day. These people are the worst.
First of all, I love the whole bit. These people, let me tell you about these people. You all know my doctor, Dr. Vinny Boom Butts. And then, he says, these people, they tell me, well, it was a holiday. Come on, give us a break. We were just celebrating by killing our friends. I know there's some people on the right who say, this is an overreach and this is a threat to federalism. And we don't, imagine if the shoe were on the other foot. And if we do this now, then when the Democrats take power, they're going to use the government to blah, blah, blah. You can tell my view of this argument. Should we have any trepidation about this? Is there any legitimate reason to oppose Trump sending in the National Guard to stop the murders and the chaos?
No, I think it's actually exactly what we were talking about, not in the sense of muscular Christianity per se, but in a muscular fight against evil. I mean, this is peace through strength, and you shouldn't have to do this when it comes to domestic violence. But unfortunately, we do. Do we want to save people's lives or not? Do we care about the poor kids in the poor neighborhoods who are getting slaughtered or not? And I wish it didn't come to this. That's my regret. My regret isn't that Trump is doing what he can to fight crime. My regret is that we got to the point to where the federal government is looking at once beautiful and safe American cities and saying, well, that's a disaster. And on behalf of the vulnerable people who live there, I guess we have to do something. And the people in charge there should be embarrassed. They should be embarrassed that that is necessary. And that's why they're reacting the way they are. They're insecure about their ineptitude when it comes to their leadership. And I think Trump is looking good. I know that progressives don't agree with me there, but I love it.
I love it. I love it. And even, you talk about Chicago, it's an American city. And I think we need our cities to be nice. I think that's a national understanding of the country. There's nothing contrary to federalism or the Constitution in that. I don't even like Chicago. I do like American cities, even though they're almost all liberal. I love New York. I love DC. I love Boston to some degree. I even love Los Angeles, Gomorrah by the Sea. I do like a lot of these. I don't like Chicago. Chicago does nothing for me. I don't like the casseroles that they call pizzas, and it just doesn't do that much for me. Still, we shouldn't have 11 people getting murdered over a weekend. We shouldn't have, 2 people getting murdered every day on average. It's like, come on, it's a city. We got to do it. Okay. Right. Before I let you go, also, this time, I promise, I know you're very busy, but before I let you go, I have to compliment you. Your performance on Jubilee, on Surround. I've done Jubilee. A lot of our friends have done Jubilee. Charlie did Jubilee. And it can be fun. Some people have done well. Some people have not done well. It's 2 hours. And if you screw up even 90 seconds of it, that's the clip that's going to go viral and you could lose your career. So it's a high pressure environment. You were magnificent. You were excellent. Here's just a little taste of it.
You.
Okay. What I think is toxic empathy, and this will probably unleash a can of worms, which will be fun. If I feel so deeply that someone who sits across from me says, you know what, I was assigned male at birth, but I am trapped in the wrong body, and I identify as a girl.
Okay.
I would say that feeling so deeply how that person feels, that you get to the point of affirming their identity and saying, yes,
why
you
can't we
are
affirm
the
that?
opposite sex.
The Bible doesn't condemn transgenderism.
Okay, let's get there. Hang on. That is an example of what I would say is empathy that has turned toxic because you are affirming something that is not true and is destructive for the individual.
If it's not true, then you're saying that God is not sovereign
true.
because
Of course he is. He made their body with purpose from the moment of conception.
Then he also created their mind with
biology is
purpose.
their identity.
Their mind is their identity, their consciousness, because biology is not an individual.
No.
I mean,
that's not a biblical idea. To separate your identity and your spirit from your body is dualism. That's more of a kind of a Gnostic idea, not a biblical idea. We see in Genesis 1:27 that God created us male and female. We don't see any other category or possibility to identify as something other than what you biologically are. So I would say it is toxically empathetic to feel so deeply how someone feels that you affirm the lie that you can be born in the wrong body.
Be Still My Beating Heart. It was so good. You can't pick just one clip. There's so many others where you're hitting chapter and verse and then political philosophy and anthropology and it all cool as a cucumber, totally unflappable. The reason I bring it up is not just to puff you up, Allie, though it was marvelous. I noticed something in the participants, which is when I did the show, I think I did well. I think I won the arguments and everything. But for most of the people there, I did not persuade them. Maybe 20 years from now, they'll be persuaded, but I don't think I persuaded them I might have persuaded the audience, but not them. I think if you just look at their faces, you kind of persuaded some of them. And I think it was so weird about the episode is they, not only were you nice and gracious to them, they sometimes even were nice and gracious to you. Is there a shift? Is there an earthquake happening?
Yes, and I'm sorry, there's some noise in the background that I can't control right now, but hopefully you can hear me okay. Yes, it was. And actually, I don't know why, but Jubilee cut this out. My first opponent or participant who sat down, this was the day before Charlie's memorial. And he sat down, and before we started, he said, I am so sorry about your friend Charlie. And 2 or 3 more participants did the same thing. And I had already made it my aim to try to out-kindness them. That was one thing I had been saying. I was like, I'm going to try to out-compassion them and charm them and all of this stuff. But truly, they did the same to me. Not all of them. Some of them were aggressive and hard to talk to, but more of them were kind and soft and gentle. And I don't know if everyone just kind of, there was like a little bit of sympathy in the room because they understood that this was the weekend that we were going to go to Charlie's memorial and that I was friends with Charlie. I don't know, but the producers even remarked on it after. They were like, we've never had a Jubilee like this. And maybe it's also because these people identified as Christians. And so there was something there that they wanted to represent their Christianity well. Yeah, but I definitely tried to, like, my biggest thing that I would say is that I tried to go back to my like strengths every time. If they tried to veer off the reservation into something that I didn't know about, and that happened multiple times, just go back to the claim and where you feel like you can properly defend yourself.
I did wonder if a difference between, I did an episode, it was LGBT activists, and yours were liberal Christians. And liberal Christian is a contradiction in terms, because liberalism is an ideology that is in conflict with Christianity. And so, sometimes they can kind of uneasily go together. But the problem for someone like Joe Biden, who would be a liberal Christian, the problem is when the liberalism and the Christianity do come into conflict, like on abortion, say, the liberalism always wins with Joe Biden, so much so that his administrations he's a part of will like sue nuns and jail pro-lifers and stuff like that. So they don't go together. But the fact that these people at least identify as Christian, I do wonder if that inclined them a little more toward charity. Maybe that was it. I hadn't considered the timing of the filming with Charlie. The fact that, I don't know if he would be surprised by it. He knew that cool stuff was happening. I remember, not to reveal private conversations, but there was one time after the election, I said, yo, Charlie, we were at one of the events. I was like, this is pretty crazy, man. We're kind of talking about his role in the party and his influence. And there was a slight acknowledgement of, yeah, it's pretty wild, huh? It was like, whoa, this is pretty nuts. And so, but I do think even he would have been kind of surprised by the national and even global effects of his murder. The fact that he could make the combatants on Jubilee be nice to Allie Beth Stuckey, I don't know that he would have predicted that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And we had talked a lot about this Jubilee debate before I did it. And I was just very thankful for the advice that he gave me. And I would love to hear his reaction and response to it now. But you're right. I was surprised by that too, because I watched your debate. I watched all these other debates. And especially to Charlie, people were so hostile to him.
So mean.
They said
mean to him.
Terrible things about, stupid stuff, about his appearance, about his family. One person said a horrible thing about his daughter. And so that's what I was expecting, because liberal Christian, as you say, it's a contradiction in terms. I didn't expect the Christianity to change much about the hostility, because I've seen what people like that say about me on the internet. It's no different than the secular progressive, the worst kind of names, the worst kind of threats. But I was very pleased. I felt like most of them were very respectful. And a lot of liberal Christians just haven't thought about why they believe what they believe. So I could see their wheels turning too, and praise God for that. All we can do is plant seeds, and then God does the rest. So we'll see.
Totally. There's a great friend of mine who I've been going to his bakery since I was a kid. And he's this Italian guy in the Bronx, and, kind of born again. He's like a born again, evangelical Catholic. But he goes to daily mass, but he kind of has the affect of an evangelical Protestant. And he wears an I Love Jesus hat. He goes, hey, buddy boy, I do my best and God does the rest. That's what I do. Allie, magnificent as always to see you. If you're not listening to Relatable, you should be doing that. It's crazy that you're not. If you haven't seen Allie on Jubilee, you got to go watch the whole thing. And just follow her generally everywhere. Allie, always a delight. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, folks, would you like a sneak peek preview of my face-off with Mary Morgan? Do you want to know which guest we're going to have on Yes or No this Monday, or how I got VIP access to the Post Malone concert? Great news. You can get it all in one place. Check out this teaser for Behind the Wire. I was on Lower Broadway last night.
No.
Yeah, I was. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for that to fall out. I was just at the VIP Post Malone bar opening last night.
Michael, I am within choking distance.
So Ben Davies has a show, and the show it's like the Michael Knowles show. But anyway, you get exclusive updates, first looks, and inside scoop from the producers, editors, and directors all around the Daily Wire. Watch Behind the Wire on Daily Wire Plus every Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Folks, we have Fake Headline Friday in the Membrum Segmentum. The hoi polloi have to go away. The creme de la creme are going to to get it. So you have to go to DailyWire, become a member, use code Knowles, Canada WLAS at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.